Hello again, I'm Adam Mackintosh and I'm here today for Music Over Miles to do a tutorial for you on how to create your first MP3. That sounds very simple. It's actually slightly complex, but I'm going to get you through it. If you watch the last module on multitracking, what we're going to do is we're going to take all of those multiple tracks that are synced or synchronized together, and we're going to mix them down. Some people will say the word bounce them down to an MP3 file, a shareable file that you can, I don't think people burn them to CDs anymore, put on a thumb drive. You can text to yourself and listen to on your phone. You can upload to a digital music service and sell it. There's all kinds of things that you can do with an MP3. It's a powerful thing. And what I'm going to teach you specifically is how to make it sound good, right? So not just the mix itself, but the overall output of the MP3. And that's what's inside this tutorial today. At the end of it, you're going to know how to take everything that you've put into your tracks, all of the sounds, and how to blend all of those together into something that's cohesive and sounds like a song when you're listening to it on the radio, right? So let's dive in. I'm Adam Mackintosh here for Music Over Miles. This is going to be a fun one. All right. We're back with Module 5. This is creating your first MP3 or your first mix. I'm Adam Mackintosh. I'm here with Music Over Miles. And we're going to pick up right where we left off by opening up Garageband. In our last tutorial, we were working on this piece, which is titled Multitracking. And we had a pretty good mix going. Now, I know it was playing through a speaker off to the side of the computer and kind of going sideways into the microphone, so you could hear some phasing and some weird things in the tutorial. But what we're going to do is we're going to create an MP3, and then I'm going to put the MP3 in the video. So you'll be able to hear what the mix sounds like as opposed to what it just sounds like in the room with the improper microphones. Okay, so we're going to, first of all, we're going to fire Dave. And so I want to show you how to delete a track. Okay, so you do something like this, and you go, it's not very good. And so you go up to Edit, and you go up to Track, and you go to Delete Track. You have this one highlighted, but you want to make sure that you are highlighting the track that you want to delete, right? You don't want to delete this one yet. You want to delete that one. And we go to Track, and we hit Delete Track. Now it will warn you, there are regions. This is a region in this track. Delete track and regions? Yeah, because that Dave guy was not good. And then this soloist that we had, who was playing like crazy all over the vocals, we are going to delete that too. Now, we don't necessarily have to delete the track. We can just delete the region. Bye-bye. Okay, so let's make this full length. We'll select our bass part in the interest of saving time and copy and paste it over, and then take these two off the end. Same thing with, hold tight, same thing with our guitar line. And same thing with our rock organ. And one of the things that I had promised earlier in the introduction was that I was going to show you how to make a mix overall sound good, right? So let's say, for example, that we wanted to put an Apple loop in here as well, right? And we showed you this in an earlier tutorial, but what I showed you was drum stuff mostly. There's a lot more in here, okay? So let's look at, and this is for people who don't have an instrument or aren't really playing it, or haven't been playing it for very long yet and just can't express themselves, but you want to make some music in GarageBand and get good at the application. So we can look at guitars in here and pull up an electric guitar. All right, so that's one. Let's see if that will work with the key that we're in. Just really quickly. Now that's off. Okay. So what else have we got? Let's look at, if this is scale. Oh, look. I've never used these, honestly. I play all my own guitar stuff. So this is interesting. Minor. Let's go back to... Okay, that's super weird. Let's try that. And we'll put it on its own track. And then we want to make sure that it's pulled all the way up to the front. And let's just listen to it with the guitars, bass and guitar. So we're soloing all these tracks, rewinding to the beginning. Even weirder. All right, so a lot of this is process, right? Process is ugly. It's not always pretty. And it takes a lot of time to find things in these samples that are going to work for what it is you're making, right? So don't let that freak you out. Just keep on keeping on and find something in these descriptions that you like the sound of. Alright, so I got an idea of what we can do. Let's do this. Alright, we've got our song. It starts. have our song take a complete left turn. So we're going to take, and this is a really good trick actually, we're going to take this bass part let's take this bass part first. So this bass part, we're going to slide it over, and this is why we go past 100, so we can keep it, right? Now I know these are all the same, but if this was different, we would want to keep it over here. And we'll roll back that guitar track to there. And then, since we've got a line here on 25, and we have two tracks that we can pull these kind of strange guitars into, we can pull this in to here and see what happens. All right, that's hilarious. So let's take this 70s clav out. Those are all copies, so we can get that back if we need it. The classic rock organ, I mean. And then we have the option, these are where the choices come in, of repeating this or seeing if we can find something that goes with it to put alongside it. So there's this Velvet Lounge guitar. Let's take that over here. Make sure you line them up. If you want that to go the length of the space that we have, you just bring this over to the other side, copy that, of course, and whoops, put it in the wrong space. Copy that, of course, and line this up. I'll put it on there. Okay, so now it's double the length that it was before. Let's see what happens now. All right, so admittedly, it's a little strange, right? I want to see if there's anything else down here. That's kind of interesting. Let's take this second part out and put in this bizarre wah guitar right up alongside it. And we're going to check that to make sure that they're connected. And now we're going to listen to this. Okay, so we're blending some keys here, and it's fun. It's goofy and it's weird, and this is sometimes how great things are discovered. So let's make another one, and I want to talk a little bit about the other instruments that are available in here. We've got, if we go to World It'll give us some pretty cool Okay, that one's great. All right, so we let our song come back in, let it go for a little bit longer, and we have this other 60s combo saved over here, so we could just pop this one out. We'll take our cheap studio time guitar, and we know that it's going to match up right there. I don't know if this is going to match up with the 70s clav or not, or the church rock organ, so I'm just going to stick it in there and see what happens. Okay, I'm going to put this on 49 and check my edits. Looks good. All right, let's see what happens. Okay, clearly doesn't go with the rock organ part that we had before. But it's super cool. Okay, so they've got things like this in here for you to experiment around with and really learn other people's styles too. Oh, that was interesting. Okay, that's the wrong one. So yeah, copy this one, get back to the line with it. And these you really do have to copy and paste because you can't play them, obviously. All right, so this just keeps getting weirder and weirder, and that's really the fun part for me. Let's add one more. Let's see. All right, so we now have a vocal sample, and we'll mix it up a bit by leaving one out. Okay, it's getting very strange. Now I want to check out these Cuban and the Turkish and the oud. Okay, so let's take out one more section. We'll let this go for two more. Pull this back. Very likely not going to go with the church organ. But we can make this really strange. Put that there. Okay, so do you see what I mean by making sure that these things are placed in the right boxes? Got to check them. And then let's stack all three of them. Why not? Just make it totally weird. All right, here we go. Okay, that was almost cool. What's this? Oh yeah, that's way better. And then we can just take this end off. All right, so they don't match in key, but that's not important right now because what I really wanted to show you was that there are a whole bunch of instruments over here that you can choose from. These just, they go on and on and on, and they do all kinds of different stuff. That happens to be in C. I think it's probably going to sound really weird with our E. So I'm not going to add more of that to it. But let's talk about what this is shaping up to sound like as a whole mix, right? And now that we know we're not going to use this over here, we want to take it out because we want our song to end right here. We want our MP3 to end here. We don't want it to keep playing and then all of a sudden this bass line comes in. So we're going to pop that out. We've got some things that we threw in here just to make it kind of different and bizarre. You can hear what some of the options are to put in here. And of course, your own ideas are always better. But these are good little pieces of inspiration. And we can always put a little master echo, master reverb on them and spruce them up a bit. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to look at the track as one whole piece, even though it's in separate pieces. We're going to play it from the beginning, and we're going to go here. Okay, up until this point, since we started, we've been going track by track. So this blue button controls this track. If I switch to this track, this blue button controls that track. But what we're going to do now is we're going to switch over to what's called the master settings for it. All right. So these are the master effects. These are the master plugins. This is the output, and this is the equalizer. So we're going to try and do, and you won't hear it through this little microphone that I'm talking into, but when I play the MP3 in the video itself, you will hear what this sounds like. So I'm going to turn some knobs and tell you what I'm doing as I'm doing it.
Okay, that brought the snare up. Really great. Okay, that's plenty on the master echo. We don't need any more than that. And I'd really rather spend time on the equalizer. And this takes some getting used to. You don't need to know what all these numbers mean. You just need to know that there are different bands and they're different colors, right, for right now. You have this orangish one. You have this green yellow one. You have this purple one. And this looks like it's the 3. Oh. Yeah, and then you have this light green one. Okay, so you can drop more of these in and get more contour, but really 4 is plenty. Okay. So I'm going to leave that one where it's at. Let's take all these to flat. And then you'll be able to hear some of it as I'm changing the EQ live, but then you'll really be able to hear how good it sounds in the mix. Okay, so that's all our lows. Alright, so you see what I did there? I gave us a little more guitar, a little more bass, and I pulled back on the rock organ because it was louder than everything else, right? And it's kind of a mid-rangey. It's in this area of tone, and it's kind of piercing, right? So we're going to leave that tone, that range of tone down here because we don't need it any more piercing. And I brought it back. You'll still really be able to hear this in the mix, but it won't be harsh on your ear. Okay, now Garageband crashes, weird things happen. If you recall, this was our bass channel, right? And somehow I didn't change it, but it got changed into a guitar amp called Country Gent. So if you're not paying attention, all of a sudden your bass sounds like that. It sounds like a bass being played through a guitar amp, which is not what we did originally. So we have to go back to the library and change it back to the 60s combo so that we can have back our sound. Right? Now we have to go back to the track and controls and look. Yeah, remember how we had that great buttery sound? All right. So you have to keep an eye out for things like that. They happen. We don't need this big brute blues track, so we're going to delete it, tidy things up, keep things clean, and they're more visible to you now, right? And let's say, you know, we don't need this to carry on more than 4 times at the end. So we can take out all of this because we get it by now, right? Okay. And let's listen to what we have. All right, so it's good that you saw that, because that's what happens when you start utilizing too many effects or plugins on any one track. Now we're on the master, right? And as soon as I started to add these things, like add silver, sizzle, vocal edge, it just started falling apart, right? You heard it just kind of gargle. And the processor can't keep up with it. Right? So unless you have a very expensive computer with a really enormous hard drive, it's going to be really hard to add an effect to absolutely everything, which is why you should be good at performing things, right? Okay, so let's listen, and I don't know how well you hear this now, but we'll listen to it with the master on and then with the master off. So everything that we did under this master category, we're going to turn off by hitting compare and listen to the difference. Pretty big difference, right? You hear the guitar went up really loud, the drums went really quiet. So everything that's in here is helping even out. And like I said, it's all sort of a form of compression, right? We're taking out all the high-end stuff, we're pulling up all the low-end stuff, so there's not too much of either, right? Okay, our master track has that EQ. That looks right. And if we stay on effects, we have a master echo, our output. And then I want to check one thing on the drums before we're done. I want to hear what brightening these drums up a bit and adding some compression to them does. Okay, so I feel like the drums are getting a little bit lost. So what you do is you don't keep turning up the drums, you turn down everything else. So we're going to bring the bass down a little bit, we're going to bring the guitar down a little bit. We already have the church organ down some, but let's try bringing it down a little bit more. And that will give space for the drums to breathe. Just drums and bass. All right, so that's a reasonable mix. Now you can do this, like I said, it's done when you walk away. You can do this for days. You can do this for hours. The decisions that you make are all yours, and they ultimately will be your signature. What you create in these spaces, what you put here and what you don't put here are equally important. So let's mix this, right? Okay, so you'd think you would go to mix, but you don't. You go to share. They have song to music, song to a media browser, song to SoundCloud, right? So when you get good at this and you have something that you really like and you want to sound it or send it directly to your SoundCloud account, that's cool. You want to airdrop it to your iPad or someone's phone or email it, that's cool too. But the easiest thing to do and the easiest way to keep track of all the files that you're going to make is to export the song to the disk. And that's the hard disk of the computer. Right? So it's going to bring us up a pop-up window, and it's going to ask us some things. All right, do we need all of this information here, the date and everything like that? We don't. This is our multi-tracking mix MP3. These are all the things that we did. We multi-tracked, we mixed it a little, and we converted it into an MP3. We want to send to the desktop, and these are the file types that we can make this. Okay. An MP3 is usually, in its highest quality, 256. Okay. So you can just leave that like it is. Later, when you go into making bigger and more involved tracks, you'll use AIFF and WAV because these are giant files and they just have a lot more depth and sound quality to them. But for now, our MP3s that we're passing around and having people throw a guitar track on or a vocal track on, this works great and they don't take up too much space on your computer. So we know it's going to the desktop. We're going to hit export, and then it's going to bounce. Remember I said this, sometimes people will refer to this as bouncing the tracks. It's going to bounce this down in real time. So you can see that this is happening, and this is giving us a kind of a report on how long it's taking. So this will take a moment. And this is why they call it a hurry up and wait industry, right? So you can imagine if you had 30 tracks and they all had different plugins and you had a computer system that's big enough to manage all this stuff, this might take 2 hours, right? To render all of this into one file so that when you hit a single play button, you hear all of this in order. That's what mixing and really creating an MP3 is. You don't just create an MP3. There's obviously a lot of things that you have to do beforehand before you can even make the MP3, right? But that is the easiest part, just going to share and clicking on export to disk. Okay, so we're almost done here. And when we are, I'll find it on the desktop, and it should be named what we named it. so that we can find it. And then I will put it into some of the video. Okay, so it's converting this to an MP3, and you see it's a good thing we deleted the track that we had over here, or it would have just kept on going. And it's done. So what's the last thing we do? Save it. Right? Okay, so I know it's weird. I know it's wily. I like that. And you can do whatever you want in these sections. But you see that I carved out space from our original tracks to make space for something else. You can do all kinds of that. And I hope you do. It's been really fun doing these tutorials. I plan on doing more of them on more subjects. There's obviously a lot more in just GarageBand that I could talk about. But it goes on to Logic and mastering, getting things to sound really crisp and bright and like you would hear on the radio. There's a lot more to that. It gets a lot more technical, and maybe I'll do some of that down the road. But you should be able to now create tracks, multi-track them, guitars, basses, drums, edit your drums, add an organ, add single notes in MIDI, add guitar parts if you don't have a guitar, cram them together, you know, take 4 of them and make them into something other than what one of them is alone. And you should also know about this panel down here, all of the options you have for drums over here, all of the options you have for amps, bass amps, and these options down here, the amplifier that you're using and the pedal board that your effects are going through. All right, so that's quite a bit to digest. And if you watch these like 5 tutorials, you're going to be pretty good at GarageBand. So I hope you enjoy it. I've been Adam Mackintosh for Music Over Miles. Come visit me over at my website. I'll put some free music there, and a lot of it I started making just like this. So you can download that stuff for free and give it a listen, because some of the vocal stems that I have here, original vocal stems, wound up in the final mixes. All right? Have fun, make great music, collaborate with other people. That's really where the best stuff comes from. Take care.